right, y'all. Welcome back to the Who's Right podcast. And I know the Knicks game is going on. I know. But, when I scheduled this, I saw the day off. I apologize, but I am so thankful for all the hardcore Met fans out there. And you know, as soon as we're done here, we're gonna go watch the next game. So, um, what a week. We're gonna get right into it. But before we get right into it, Victor, how you doing?
Yeah, no, we'll keep it brief, be very quick. We got things to do. I got games not to watch since I can't watch these games. Ever since I stopped watching these games, the Knicks have been winning, and so I'm not going to spoil that. I can scoreboard watch, that's what I'll do. But we got to get back to scoreboard watching, um, and we got to get you guys back to watching that Knicks game too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And remember, subscribe to the channel, like this video. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about this team. Coming off the wins last week, we kind of expected or was hoping for a winning week, but going West Coast again, splitting the week 3-3, not the way we wanted to see it. But at the end of the day, can't get too far low, can't get too high. We're in the West Coast for the final time this year, and 3-3 is not a bad. That's kind of something that we should have kind of expected, only because Seattle going into last week was a hot team, and we kind of broke their streak in the last game of that series, and so Seattle was hot, and that happens. We just run into a hot team. What do you think, Victor?
No, I mean there were games that we should have won. Well, it was a series we should have won because one game we got blown out the water, but it was a frustrating game where no offense, tough pitching. We talked about it going into the series. We were going to see tough pitching, um, and that's what we saw. We seem to have George Kirby's number, and that's the only saving grace that we had to win a game this week, or against that Seattle team. But it was good to, you know, like I think, like you said, Bichette had a good series against Seattle, and was making things happen, and so it was good in that regard. And then our pitching, for the most part, held up. There wasn't too bad of of a start. I think we were in most of those games, and until the very end, the middle game was where we were out of it. But um, yeah, no, I mean we got to flush that one down the toilet, and at least we are able to salvage that series and win that last game.
Absolutely, absolutely, and like I said before, it was a hot team going in. They had won 8 in a row, or had won 6 in a row coming into the series, and took the first two, and then we finally broke that streak, and that's going to happen. And the good news is this was the last West Coast trip of the season. The last game after 8 p.m. that start time, and that's good news. Now on to the San Diego series. We come into the series, um, you know, against a team that is also not being able to score runs, also relying on some big names that are slumping. I don't know if that sounds familiar to everybody, but it's something that we took advantage of. Scott was excellent on Friday. 5 and 2/3 scoreless innings, and getting that win on Friday. Saturday, we thought we were going to get that win, and for me, out of nowhere, because our bats were silent on Saturday, gets that 2-run shot to seal the deal on Saturday. And then we come out and take care of business. 5 for 5 yesterday with Carson Bench, letting everybody know that this is the reason why we let go and traded away Nimmo. that this is the reason why he's here. And at the end of the day, we're starting to see the plan come to fruition, even though it's been a little bit frustrating to watch this season. But good win, good series win against San Diego. The guy that doesn't get talked about, Christian Scott, with a good outing. I was listening to Evan Roberts, and he compares him to, and I think you've said this before, so let me give you credit as well. But Wheeler, a mini Wheeler coming.
I mean, and I think I have said that before, but I also want to, give the kid space to be his own because, obviously he wears the same number, has the same windup, but his stuff looks very similar. But he just has that dog in him, and that's what I like about this kid is that every time he goes out there, he looks like he wants to be out there, and he pitches like he wants to go deep into games. I mean, to go from, um, to go into that game or go into the sixth inning after I think what he had 88, 90 pitches going into that sixth inning and still being able to go 5 2/3, almost getting through that sixth. And, you know, some may argue that he should have been allowed to get through that sixth inning. But I think we're just seeing the growth of this kid right before our eyes. And he was one that I was high on in 2023 when he came up, or yeah, 2023 when he 24, 24 when he came up, and
24.
then that elbow injury happened, and he went down on the shelf, and now we're seeing him build up again. And so between him and Nolan McLean, we have some great stuff on our hands, and that is the one area of that we'll talk about in our concerns too is the is that Nolan McLean start. I know that he worked through and got through that start, um, having minimal damage, but it looked like he was still working, and he's been working real hard these past couple of things. And that's the one that the thing that these two kids have in common is that they're gonna grind through their starts. And Nolan McLean definitely grinded through his start, and then we had Sean Mania pitch serviceable ball on Sunday. And so the pitching was was um, was strong enough to win us some games in this series, and that's what the important part was is that our pitching got us through those games. And then, like you said, that Austin Warren 2-run homer was a killer, um, because we were hoping to stack up some points and stack up some wins against these Padres who many call frauds, but they still have some talent on the team. So I don't want to go that far to say that they're frauds because I think they're still a good team. I think they're very similar to the Mets in the regard that they have some guys that aren't performing, and then they run into some bad luck sometimes. But we had a chance to gain some momentum, and unfortunately, Freddie Fermin, with his below Mendoza line average, decided to hit a 2-run homer. But you scratch that, you hope to build, and then you blow them out the water the next day like they did, and that makes up for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a quick scoreboard update: 64-57 Knicks at the half. So they're at halftime right now. So give you a little bit of scoreboard update there. And yeah, it's one of those things where Nolan McLean struggled through it. But let me digress because we'll get that into our concerns on that. But what I wanted to say was we look at this Padres team right now and we see a lot of bloated contracts, you know, and a lot of bloated contracts that aren't performing. And this is what, it's my opinion. I don't know if Victor has the same opinion, but my opinion is this is what Stearns did not want: a lot of bloated long term contracts. We do have a lot of bloated contracts, but for now, a lot of them are short term. We got rid of the Nimmo contract, right? We didn't sign Alonzo, and it's one of those things that this is what we didn't want because San Diego, if this team was in New York, they'd be getting crucified right now. You know what I mean? And so, we can argue about how the team was constructed or anything, but and you could have the opinions on which guys to bring in, but I'm not going to argue against not signing a Pete Alonso, getting rid of the Nimmo contract, because right now, if we really look at everything, we would have been screaming um, with the way they're performing right now if they were on this team, because we would have still been in that losing streak. And what wouldn't have happened? We wouldn't have had a bench. We wouldn't have had that 5 for 5 and see a bright future and still be able to win some games this year and potentially be in the playoffs because it ain't over yet. What do you think?
I would agree with you that, the San Diego contracts don't look good, but I'm never going to say that I didn't want Pete back on this team. And so I'll die on that hill. I think that that there are some contracts that are worth it. But at the end of the day, these teams were constructed with um, a lot of money that seems wasted. We'll talk about the injury news here and probably part of our concerns, but a lot of wasted money. And that's why I see some similarities with these teams, and the difference is right now our young guys are playing. Our young guys are proving that the farm system was built correctly. San Diego's are constant sellers every trade deadline, or sorry, buyers. So they're selling off their prospects every trade deadline and are depleting their farm system, it seems like. And that's something that the Mets have been good at, of kind of just maintaining, seeing when to sell, when not to sell, and building up their talent. Because, I mean, I was wrong, guys. I mean, I'll raise my hand now and say I was wrong about Carson Bench and having to send him down for a little bit to for him to develop. Because look at the kid now and how much he's broken out. And the same could be said about AJ Ewing, where he's put up some good at bats lately. He struggled for a little bit,
That
but
bat, that at bat against Mason Miller.
yeah, you know what I'm saying, and so I'll be the first to admit that when I say you got to protect your prospects and have them develop in the minor leagues, maybe my thinking was flawed, and these guys develop at the major league level when they get to see real pitching, because we're seeing these guys shine right before our eyes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And mind you, Stearns didn't want to see them up here, right? He wanted AJ Ewing not to be up here yet. We had the potential bridge of Robert and Polanco, and unfortunately, that's what's coming in the first part of our concerns. Polanco is getting imaging again. I don't know if we heard anything today. I really haven't looked, um, but I don't think we did. And so Polanco's looks another setback. I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to have surgery or whatever to repair it to make sure there are no more setbacks. But doesn't look like Polanco's coming back anytime soon. Robert, yes, that's exactly right. No news. There's crickets going on with Robert right now. And so, I thought we were going to see the end of Mark Vientos, as soon as Blanco came back. And unfortunately, he ain't coming back anytime soon.
And the stinky part is that two of the biggest offseason acquisitions in the free agent market have been on the shelf for most of the year, and there's no sign of them coming through anytime soon. And then on top of that, we talk about Francisco Lindor and how he's going to be a big boost to this team, but there's been no news on that. and where he's developed in his rehab, and so it's looking like that timeline is getting pushed further and further. The more silence we hear about him, the only good news that we've had on the injury front is that is that Francisco Alvarez is might be coming back soon and might join us as soon as the end of this or this home stand, and so that would be awesome. I think that'll be a big boost to this team. I mean, you know, we I love Luis Torrens, but at limited playing time.
Well, I mean, Alvarez caught 9 innings yesterday, so he might be back with the team as early as tomorrow, and I would hope, send Wagaman down because at this point, um, Young has taken over the first base position, and Vientos is going to be on the bench regardless because he has no options. You send Wagaman down, and you keep Singer as your third catcher, and you have Torrens starting catcher, and you have Alvarez as your DH for most games. And then swap in the games that you want Soto to be the DH, and have Alvarez catch those games, and but just have Alvarez be your long term catcher for not long term, but at least for now DH. Because they were actually doing that. Before Alvarez got hurt, and they were having him DH and Torrens catch. And so I'm thinking you keep that third catcher and you keep Alvarez as a DH for most games, and we see Alvarez on Tuesday.
I mean that's the best case scenario right now, especially since Jorge Polanco is not going to be back anytime soon, and so I do see Alvarez DHing for a little bit, but I would also love to see him take over the catcher spot because I love Luis Torrens like I said I love his defense, but I think if we think long term, Alvarez is still a 21-year-old kid, and I think we still have to ride this out as much as we can. Um, Between this year and next year, the we have Luis Trans as a backup catcher, and so I think we got to figure out what we have in Francisco Alvarez, and him coming back can be the start. And if we're able to push to a playoff spot, then I think Francisco Alvarez has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, no, for sure, and absolutely, I agree with that completely. But Terens might be showing some pop. Might start showing some pop and start showing some. He's made some adjustments to his swing this year, and who knows? Maybe the Terens that everybody expected 5 years ago is finally developing before our eyes. And but who knows? At the end of the day, we don't know. But you're right. Alvarez is 22, way too early to give up on that kid. So yeah, I hope he as they bring him back, they bring him back slowly, and then when who knows when Polanco's ready, he's going to be the full time catcher again, and so hopefully that's what happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then one of the concerns that I had, um, I think I mentioned it a little earlier, but is Nolan McLean getting tired? I wonder how much he's pressing, how much of this is he's getting tired of, because he's transitioned to a full time pitcher. He's putting a lot of wear and tear on his arm, and or is there an injury there? Because he's not pitching with the same stuff. We still see him struggle through outings and struggle with his command, and I'm hoping that he's okay. They can figure out some of this stuff. I thought this Padres start would have been a great way for him to get back on in the groove without any stress, without any worry. Because at the end of the day, we're not getting any starter help. Kodai Senga's down there, you know, um, looking horrible, and it might stay down there for the rest of the year at this point. So I'm hoping that Noel McLean can figure it out because we do need him at the top of this rotation um, to prove that he is one of the better starters in the rotation.
Yeah, I don't think it's injury. I just think it's a year two starter. Um, the teams have adjusted to Nolan McClain, and he's just got to adjust back. It's year two. He's got to now figure it out and become a consistent major league pitcher, right? Because we talked about it. His command's been off. I think I said it last week, but I at least said it in one of the Twitter spaces. I think he focuses on way too many pitches. I know he can throw all of them, but I think he needs to condense his arsenal a little bit, focus on 3 to 4 pitches instead of all six, and make sure you get those over the plate. Um, because people are starting to see that he has so much movement on pitches that they are willing to risk it becoming a ball, and more often than not, it's happening. Because there's so much movement on the pitch, he's got to adjust that. Whether it's the where he throws it, how he throws it, I think there's an adjustment period. He's got to figure it out, and hopefully he does. And as far as Senga, well, Mets got till June 20th, I believe, to make a decision. So it might be 2 starts down in AAA before they have to make a decision on him. And hopefully, he shows something in the next 2 starts, because or there's going to have to be some type of conversation, and so let's see how that pans out. But I agree with you. Nolan just needs to figure it out, and Senga Senga needs to show us something, because Mania looked decent, but he also didn't pitch a lot. Like, I know he was the bulk guy, but he's also trying to be a starter. And he had a good game on Monday, last Monday, but yesterday he had a decent game. Gave up 2 runs again to Fermin, and but he only pitched 3 innings, and so that's kind of my concern, um, with not trusting Senga, not trusting Mania fully, not trusting Peterson fully. We just need one of these guys to step up.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough to kind of work through these things. Luckily, we have a good bullpen. Luckily, these guys on the back end have been good. We have a lot of bulk guys. I think we're probably going to see. I'd be interested to see what they do with Tobias Myers in the minor leagues, to see if they start stretching him out with the start that he gets down there. And then when he comes up, if they do give him an opportunity to start, because, like you said, Mania didn't look great. He didn't look bad, but he didn't look great. And so I think we do need to look for some other help around here. But we do need to solidify the front line of the rotation. And Christian Scott's been pitching really well with 2.5 ERA. Freddie Peralta has been pitching well with near 3 ERA. And there's just another guy that's missing in that mix. And so
Yep,
hopefully we can get somebody to figure it out, and the pitching can get keep us rolling.
absolutely, absolutely. So let's get to the who's right part of the podcast. I'll give you a quick recap. Victor picked Simeon as the hitter of the week. I picked Bench as the hitter of the week. We both were close. We both picked guys that actually had good weeks, but the guy that had the best week is the guy that we almost gave up on, and that's Mr. Bo Bichette. Are we seeing the beginning of Bo Bichette in the New York Mets uniform?
I just gotta stop um, picking these guys. Who do you want to see wake up? Because I'll pick them one week, and then the next week they're just gonna wake up and start playing out of their mind. Bobichette has woken up. Let's hope that he does continue this up. That he can kind of keep this up until we do see Lindor come back, so that when Lindor does come back, we just deepen this rotate or deepen this lineup, because that's going to be the key factor here. I know that we have a lot of faith in, or we were talking about how deep this lineup was at the beginning of the year, and if Bichette can figure it out and keep put it all together, then that is going to do wonders for this lineup.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I hope he did figure it out, and hope we continue to see Bo Bichette. But even Keith Hernandez said he's looking a lot better out there, so I kind of trust Keith. And as far as the pitcher of the week, Victor picked Nolan McLean. Decent start, fought through it, got 6 innings. I picked Williams. I think he only pitched once, and it wasn't even for a save. And so, but at the end of the day, we're gonna give it to the Zach Wheeler guy coming up the same way Zach being counted out, coming out of the ashes, through the smoke, Mister Christian Scott.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's looking like the real deal. He's looking like the top prospect that we saw built up in 2024, where he was just carving through AAA and making his way up. And then he came up and was looking electric, just filling up the strike zone. And so, yeah, let's just hope that he continues to build off of that, that he shows that he's the guy, the top prospect that we saw before he went down for injury. And yeah, and if if I was being compared to Zach Wheeler, there's a lot worse guys that I could be compared to, and so that is a great compliment for him. And let's hope that that noise doesn't get to his head, and he can really just focus in on his own.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't want any noise to get into his head. So that's the last time I'm talking about that count. But let's jump in right into the next segment because I want to see if we can get out of here in the next 10 minutes or so. Preview the next series. Going up against the Cardinals. Ball club that's always been a thorn in the Mets side, and this weekend is the first weekend we get to see the Atlanta Braves this year. And so, but the good part is we don't see Chris Sale this weekend. And so, but it's a test, right? This is the time that the Mets need to start gaining some ground. I'm not saying gain 5 games in the standings. I'm saying gain 1, 2 games every week. We need to start gaining some games in the standings and get to 500 and get close to the top of the standings or to the top of the wild card standings, so we can even think to have a decent stretch down the second half of the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I know how great this St. Louis team is playing, but they're beatable. They are not a team that I would be afraid of. Um, they're certainly not a team that I expected to be here, playing as good as they have been. But they've been playing good ball. I think they won their last series, but they they lost their previous two, and so they're a beatable ball club. All we're asking for is 2 games, and we have two of the guys that we just talked about. One of the guys that we just won pitcher of the week, and then the other guy that was considered our ace, and it was the opening day starter to start us off on the series. So Freddie Peralta is going to start game one. Christian Scott starting game two. You win those 2 games. Who cares what happens game three? And then you can get ready for that Brave series. So go out, win those 2 games, and then that Brave series is really crunch time. You know, we're gonna figure out what this Mets team is made of, because we all know as Mets fans that division rivalries are tough, but especially when they're with these teams, we haven't even seen the Phillies yet, which is amazing. And the Phillies and the Braves are both the teams that we're going to be competing with. And so, if we want to prove that this season is still salvageable, then we have to go out there against the Braves and prove that we can beat teams like them.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's start winning series. Let's start building and building and winning series now, gaining some ground on the wild card race. The Braves have put the division pretty far away from us right now, so that's not something we should be thinking about. But at least we should start picking away at this wild card race, and and this is the week to start that. Especially hopefully Bo Bichette. We had a decent week, meaning that we split the week 3-3 from the West Coast trip, and Soto didn't hit a lick. And so, it's one of those things that we had those games without the production of Soto. He didn't even, I think he walked once. So, continue the production of Bichette. Let's get Soto going again, and let's start winning some series. But let's jump into the picks for this week. I believe I go first with the batters this week, and so I look. I'm not even gonna pick him because I don't want to jinx it. So um, because Bo has been on and off. Had a good series, bad series, and right now he's had a good full week. So I'm gonna leave him alone for now, and I'm gonna go with as Steve Gelbs calls it, one of the kids, and I'm gonna say AJ Ewing is gonna have a week. AJ Ewing's gonna have a week.
Not a bad pick. And it looks like you know, I predict that he's gonna have a breakout here soon. Let's hope that it does come this week. Um, I'm gonna go with the guy that you said was slumping, that is gonna rise up to the occasion, and I think he plays better at home. I think he likes being with the home crowd, and so I think Juan Soto's gonna have a big week. He's gonna he slumped this past week because of the East Coast trip, but we all know he doesn't like playing in San Diego in the first place, and so I think he comes back home, proves that he's the best hitter on this team, and carries us to a couple of series wins.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that happens too. Let's hope that happens. And like out of the West Coast, we don't go back there unless it's going to be in the playoffs for a late game. So let's enjoy that. Let's get some wins. So pitcher of the week.
I'm gonna go with the guy that didn't pitch a lot last week, and the guy that you picked last week, and Devin Williams. I think he's gonna have a lot of close games to play. Um, I do think that the offense is gonna break out enough for the Mets that some of these games aren't gonna warrant a safe situation, at least against the Cardinals. But where we're gonna see Devin Williams shine is in that Brave series because they do have good pitching, they do have a good offense, they're a well-rounded team, and we're gonna need him in that series if we're going to win some games. And so I'm gonna go with to get Devin Williams to get us a couple of saves.
Okay, that's a good pick. I kind of was thinking the same thing last week, and that's a possibility for this week. I'm gonna go with a guy that we're gonna need down the stretch to make things happen, and he's gonna get a start against St. Louis and a start against Atlanta, and that's Peralta. I'm going with Peralta this week. He's a guy that's been trying to get rid of that moniker of five inning Freddie, and so I think this is a great time, a great week to start being the pitcher that one he wants to be, and the pitcher that we want him to be. Go at least 6, 7 innings for us and pitch well.
That's a good pick. I do think he's got to break out. He's got to break out. He's fighting for his contract. I think it came out this week that he was looking for an 8 million, or sorry, an 8-year deal. And so If he's going to get that 8-year deal, he's got to prove that he can pitch like a like one that deserves one. So, yeah, I'm hoping that he does have those two good starts this week.
Absolutely, absolutely. And guys, we're gonna leave it there. As I said, we wanted to bring an episode to y'all, but also wanted to get back to the next game. Next game is 76-72 right now in the third, and so you know, before we get out of here, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let us know how you're thinking on replay because we got to go whole day tomorrow after the next game. You can watch this on replay and let us know how you're feeling. And yeah, are you feeling as optimistic as we are? Or are we delusional Met fans over here? Let us know how you're thinking. But Victor, before we get out of here, any last words?
No last words this time. Let's go Mets. Let's go Knicks. Let's have a great week. Peace, guys.
Let's go, Mets.